Hey, and welcome to Financial Confidence on WYTV7 Christian Broadcasters Network. I'm your host, Lynn Demmons. That's Demmons, no demons here, y'all. Demmons. We thank you so much for tuning in for this episode where we're going to help you learn how to convert business income to personal net worth today, guys. So I want you to go and get your pen and your paper because this is going to be an amazing show today. I also want to remind you of our guiding principle for the show, which is Matthew 6:33. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. We also implore that you pray over your finances so you can do those things that you're called to do. That's to build generational wealth and leave an inheritance for your children's children. No, we don't mean don't have any fun with your money, but you do need to make sure that you're making preparation for the future. So with that said, guys, if you'll take just one moment and bow with me. Lord, help us to value the things in this world that's really valuable. That's our relationship with you, our lives, and our families. Help make us responsible stewards of your financial resources. And let us trust your holy word, your eternal glory, in thy son Jesus, we pray. Amen. All right, guys. We share that we have an amazing bit of information to share with you today. We have a special guest in our podcasting studio today, Miss Krisstina Wise. She helps you know how to convert business income into personal net worth and passive income as well. Krisstina, how are you?
I'm great. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
Well, we definitely thank you for joining us to share with our listening audience. If you will, just share a little bit about yourself with our audience before we jump into the questions.
Yeah, that's always what I call the $1 million question. And the reason why I like to share my story is I think like many of us that teach money now, we're kind of a product from our own life experience. And now we teach what we've learned. But I'm one of those rags to riches stories. I actually started in a trailer home, and it wasn't even a double wide. I mean, this was a travel trailer home size. It was on the back of somebody else's lot that was offered to us. So I grew up feeling a lot of shame and guilt and embarrassment for not having money. I was made fun of. Mm-hmm. We were the kids from the other side of the tracks. I got beat up a lot. Just all of those childhood stories. We all grow from those types of stories and wounds. But from a young age, I knew I wanted to get good at money because I didn't like how that felt. And I wanted to be more on the inclusion club as opposed to the exclusion club. And, over time, I was probably, I started my own entrepreneurial adventure when I was probably 10 and started making money. And I learned early on that if I made money and had money, I got to fit in better. So that started this, what I'd say is a relationship with money that served its purpose for a while, but wasn't the right message. But I went on, I put myself through college. I got an accounting and finance degree. I paid for it all. I was first generation of my family to go to college, but my family didn't even talk about college. It wasn't even a conversation at the dinner table. I mean, my parents disappeared from a young age anyway. So I don't even quite know how I got to college, honestly. But anyway, to go on from there, I found myself in real estate after college. And the thing about real estate sales is there's no real income. There's no real ceiling to the income. And because I was very motivated by money and I was a very hard worker and I was really ambitious, I was able to make a lot of money. And that, relatively speaking, and I made more money in a year than my parents would make in a lifetime. And so what does a poor kid do that had no money as a kid and all of a sudden they're coming to a lot of money? Well, they buy everything they couldn't afford as a kid. And really, I wanted to show the world. I almost want to give the finger to everybody that made fun of me when I was, young. But that appeared to be working. until I found myself divorced with two small children. I'm a single mom. I lost my income. All of a sudden, I realized I have tax liens and credit card debts because I abdicated my money to my husband. I made the money, but I wasn't a steward of it. I was scared to death. And I just believed as long as I made enough money, it would solve all our problems. But I didn't touch the money. I just made it and gave it away. And ultimately, that didn't work out too well. I found myself broke and a single mom and couldn't pay my light bills and had to take charity again to be able to put food on the table. So there I felt that guilt and shame and just embarrassment and just disgust with myself that I couldn't feed my own children. So it's really at that beginning where I just realized, once I got over my own pity party and realized that nobody was going to save me but myself, I decided I just was at this crossroads. I could be a victim to this. I could whine, I could cry, I could keep doing those old same habits. Or the other choice is I could learn about money. I could become a good steward. I could learn these financial principles that are very biblical in so many senses, that I can learn these things and I could apply them, and I could see if it was a better outcome than, what I just produced for myself. So that really just became the beginning of my desire to become financially savvy and to build what I call financial sovereignty, like financial wholeness, confidence, completeness, while I was building my net worth and my fortune.
Awesome. So take us back a little. You said at 10 years old, you were an entrepreneur. Tell us a little about that entrepreneurial endeavor at 10 years old, and what did you do with your first earnings?
Oh, I love that question. I've never been asked that before. Well, where it came to me that I might be okay at it was I was brownies, we had the brownies and we had the brown uniform and we had little sachet
Yes.
and we got all the emblems or whatever. So,
Yes.
my parents weren't around, so they didn't sell the cookies. So I actually wanted the emblem on the set. I wanted to show like I was a top cookie seller, and I just kind of had that built in. So I knocked on every door in the small town, and voila, I ended up selling lots of cookies and getting like all these little emblems I got to sew onto that sachet on my uniform. And, that was at the beginning. I don't know, I was probably like 8 or something about that time. So it just came in where I realized like, oh, I could sell things and then maybe I could earn something. So my first thing was we had this little swap meet in town, and one of my friends, they had this apricot orchard. And all the apricots would just fall on the ground. But I went to the swap meet and I saw other little vendors there in the back of their pickup trucks in the small town that they would sell apples or they would sell this or that. And I thought, well, there's all those apricots that are just falling down. They don't do anything. So I asked my friend if I could talk to her father about if I could collect the apricots and put them in baskets and sell them at the swap meet. I didn't even know how I did it. I mean, I guess I went to the little 5 and dime and got little baskets and somehow got somebody to pick me up and drop me off, because this was long before I could drive, and take me to swap meet. And I remember I just would, I talked myself into using somebody else's kind of truck bed and allow me to do that. And I had my little lawn chair. So I was beginning, and I just sold baskets, and I started turning that into a little business. And at the time, I just spent all my money, but it was I realized and learned at that young age is that I could actually make money from like nothing. And it just became just very instrumental that it was never built in really to go get a job and do that type of thing. Not that there was anything wrong with that, but I just never even thought. It was just kind of built in from that very beginning, like, oh, I can make money by selling something, and it doesn't matter what it is. So I think that was just a very important accidental lesson that I learned from a young age.
Awesome. I love the resourcefulness of the 10-year-old you to be able to go out and to do that and set it up. So in thinking about that, you've shared a little bit about your story and how you've progressed. But what I want to ask you, so we've been dealing with a lot here lately. We've been dealing with COVID and all of the different things that come along with that, right? I don't have to rehash 2020. But what's your priority for this year, for 2021?
Well, after 2020, I have to tell you, 2020 was a brutal year for me. And because from a financial standpoint, when, like I said, I teach the difference between income and wealth, I really look at my life, my financial life is 3 different businesses. And I teach this too, but it's to think of money in a little bit of a different framework. And my first business is my business. And so my business, it's an online education company that teaches people money. So that's my business. It's called Sovereignty Academy, Wellthy. It makes me profit. And that's how I pay. It's one of the methods of which I pay myself. But day in and day out, I'm working to become a better business owner and operator to grow the revenue and grow the profit of that business, right? That's what a business owner and entrepreneur is. But I'm not that business. I own that business and I operate it. Why? For the sake of generating cash flow. So in the money game and stewardship, I believe our job, our fundamental, most important job of a business owner is to create is to be a good steward of the business's money, like it's somebody else's money, and grow as much profit as possible. So the more skilled we are, the more profit we generate and the better profit margins. Now what we do, that's where we make our money. That's the business of making money. Now we move that money out of our business into our household. So what I teach is the business of making money is your business or your job where you go to make it. Your wealth creating business is your household. So, and it's a different kind of mindset, is that when we move our money over to our household, now it's the business of turning that income we made from our business into wealth. And that means we have to follow certain rules. One of those rules is that we can't spend everything we make. We can spend some of it, but not all of it, to your point. And we have to really figure out that magic number, like you said in your intro, of it's this balance of we need to take care of our future self. So we need to make sure we're investing and putting that money aside for that future self and still take care of our current self and our current life and our current family in today's time. So it's finding that balance between how much do I put away and spend really today for my future self and how much do I spend for my current self. And then really managing that as a business. So when you're looking at profit in your household and you're organized how you spend around profitability, that profitability meaning the percentage of profit that you're going to put towards your future self, then you get to live off of everything else. Then your third business is your investment business. That's the business of managing your portfolio, of managing your balance sheet. And we're not in that as often, but it's still a business. And so when I'm looking at these 3 different businesses, one business is about making money, my business. One business is about converting money to wealth, and that's my household business. And then my portfolio business is how to grow that money into exponential forms of income. So in 2020, to answer your question, is that I spend a lot of time in my balance sheet because I own a good amount of real estate investments. I have lots of Airbnb properties, as you can imagine. They quit paying. Some of my long-term tenants quit paying. And so 2020 was just a year of pivot, cleaning up, restructuring, re-strategizing, being very much in that business. And now 2021 is more about ease. Like, all right, that was a lot of hard work, and is just in there digging the ditches and putting out the fires and doing what needed to be done. But the beauty for me that came out of 2020 was that had it not like blown apart like it did, I would have continued doing what I'd been doing. And by virtue of being forced to rethink, restructure, and re-strategize, ultimately, the end game, the end product is going to be far better than had things just stayed the same. So sometimes life happens that way, right? We're not quite sure why the upend has happened or the crisis has happened or, things are so messy. And then later on, we're like, oh, that's why, because that's exactly what I needed to clean things up or to build a better foundation.
Awesome. So I love that you have those 3 business buckets, if you will, for your finances. So how do you help your clientele? How do you help them to now establish those 3 buckets? Because that's a very different mindset for a lot of people, and it takes work to get to that point. So what is it that you do? Just say, I'm calling in, or I want to schedule a consultation with you. What does that look like? And what is that pathway to move forward?
Yeah, I mean, who I love to work with are those that they want to get good at money, but they keep hitting the same money roadblocks. And it's like it's
Mm-hmm.
not for a lack of desire, it's just a lack of like, why month in month out I'm not getting anywhere? Why don't I feel like I'm getting ahead? Why am I just on a darn hamster wheel when I'm working hard and I think I'm doing the right things, but it's not it's not doing what I feel like it could do or should do. So when people reach that point, that's where I say, yeah, call me there. It's very, we don't know what we don't know. We can't see what we can't see. So it's our blind spots and our lack of knowledge when it comes to money that we can't do what we don't know how to do. But ultimately,
Mm-hmm.
when, where we're making the biggest mistakes is that we commingle our money. We don't understand it has these different purposes. And when we can break up our money into different buckets and we give it jobs, and now we are the trainer and we kind of guide the money to do those different jobs. It's magic what it can do. It's almost like, if you have an untrained dog that, you can have a dog and it's untrained and great, you have a dog and maybe you love it, but it's all over the place. It bites people, it barks all the time. You can't take it off a leash, it pees in the house or whatever, because it's not been trained. But you can take the same dog and you can love it, but it's discipline and it's training. You have to spend time. You have to have commands. You have to understand that dogs operate according to it's different way of understanding and learning, but they want to please. So it's only by virtue of having the discipline and doing that work that they're so eager to please. But if they're not disciplined and trained, they can never please. So our money is very similar. Is like, man, it just wants to please us when we love it, when we give it attention and time and follow the laws that it needs for it to really support us. So so part of those laws is money can't all be commingled. For it to actually do its job in each of these different categories, we need to set it up in these different categories. And like I said, we look at our money in our business, we look at our money in our household, and we look at our business, we look at our money as net worth and assets. And it's to understand that income and net worth are different. And wealth is net worth. Wealth sits on a balance sheet. Yet people, they interchange the money wealth for income or wealth for just meaning you're making a lot of money. And making a lot of money has nothing to do with wealth. It's the potential for wealth. And the more money you make, it makes it maybe easier, quicker to create wealth because you can have more of a surplus. But regardless, just because you make a lot of money does not mean you have a lot of wealth. In fact, we also, there's this myth that says the answer to all my money problems is to make more money. And no, the more money you make, if you don't, it's just like having more dogs that are untrained and undisciplined. You're just going to have a bigger mess to clean up at the end of the day and more frustrated and more anxiety. So that's just it. I know I'm preaching the choir here. But it's just that piece of understanding that our money is a byproduct of us. Money's not something we have. Money's something we do. And we hold it high regard when we are good stewards of it, when we follow the laws, when we give it attention, when we're grateful for what we have as opposed to being dissatisfied for what we don't have. It really can change the complete trajectory. But again, if we earn income, if we earn $100,000 profit or income from our business, or that's our salary, now we move that to our household. What most Americans do is that we spend $100,000. In many cases, business owners, they don't even take taxes out. So when you bring $100,000 over, especially as a business owner, you can only spend after tax income. You can't spend all of your income. So out of that $100,000, you need to take out and put that earmarked amount for taxes. Now off the top, we need to take out that profit I'm talking about. Off the top, pay yourself first. So if that's 15%, we need to make sure we took $15,000 out for our investment bucket. So right off the top, or let's just say 20%. So if we earned $100,000 and let's say we have a 20% tax rate, that's $20,000. Let's say we took 20% off for our future self. That means right off the top, we didn't earn 100. We actually earned 60,000 because everything else is somebody else's money, either it's Uncle Sam's or our future self. So that means we only have $60,000 to spend, not 100,000. And that's the only way to win the money game. And over time, we just each one of those installments of filling our bucket of that 20,000 or whatever that number is. We buy assets with that. Most Americans buy expenses. They buy payments. So they buy the car payment, they buy the student loan payment, they might buy the mortgage payment, they buy the furniture payment. They, so it's based on all their payments, the amount of how much money they think they can afford. And instead, the way we build wealth is not by buying payments. We buy assets that pay us. So it's just understanding that the wealth game is a long game. It's a long play. It's very intentional. It's based on quantifying certain numbers, like how much money is enough and how long will it take to get there. And then back ending into those numbers to know off the top of every check that we bring in, and to manage our household finance in a way that makes sure that we're hitting
finances in a rut. Need a way out? Lynn Dimmons is here to help. She's your personal financial rebound coach. Being a wife, mother, and educator, she understands the importance of controlling your finances and building generational wealth. She is here to help you find money you didn't know you had and live life on your terms. Sounds too good to be true? Well, it is true, and it's definitely a good thing. Lynn Dimmons of Dimmons Enterprise offers one-on-one coaching, group coaching, and radio podcast entitled Financial Confidence God's Way on WYTV7 Christian Broadcasters Network. Lynn Dimmons of
HBCUs and golf together. Well, now you can by joining Swing Into Their Dreams Foundation on the golf course, as we provide support and raise scholarships for aspiring HBCU students. Our HBCU students need our support now during this pandemic more than ever. So here's how you can help. We are looking for sponsors, golfers, and volunteers like you. If you're an entrepreneur, business owner, executive, or an HBCU alum, we need you. Now's your chance to make a difference. Log on to swingintotheirdreams.com. That's swingintotheirdreams.com. Or call us at 770-686-7148. That's 770-686-7148. Because we don't just want HBCU students to go to college, we want them to strive, thrive, and graduate.
So to hear you speak, and it's very true, you sound like Robert Kiyosaki or the Tony Robbins of the world, right? When we talk about all of these processes and the steps that you take. So let's look at it from this perspective, or will you share with us from this perspective? You said in the early stages, you started out in the mobile home or the trailer home. So how does one move from the mobile home to now owning properties, right, that they're now being able to utilize as assets?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think there's just so much depth and profundity in the question alone. And I don't know if I have the answer for you. I'll give you an answer that's popping into my head. And the first thing I think is just desire. I mean, we have to be responsible and accountable for our lives. So if we're a victim of circumstance or we're pointing fingers or blaming anyone for where we are, then we don't have control. We can't take charge. We can't do the work that's going to change an unsatisfactory situation into the one that we want. So I think that's the first thing. It's like, okay, well, I was dealt a hand of cards. It's not ideal, but what can I do that's going to change this? So I think that's the first thing built in. The second piece is to know what I call know your numbers. And the second piece is knowing like financial abundance and financial wellness and financial success. It really is available to everyone. And, for my kids, it's going to be easier for them than it was for me because they got a little bit of a head start, because, like you said, generational wealth. I started at 0 and maybe they'll start with a little bit ahead, which is what we want to do for our children, I think, is give them that I've completely changed the generational lineage of where our family, because we were all only until I came along was generations of, really poverty, if for that matter. No, but that's great. Now my kids have a head start, but still they need to do their own work and they need to, otherwise they're going to create their own problems. But the thing is, the second piece I think just comes from know your numbers. Like, okay, what amounts of money quantified equals a good life? And if you can answer that question, it's both an existential question, like what is a good life and how much does it cost to live it? But that's where we can start dreaming and just looking at, not compared to what everybody else is doing, or not even compared to what media or advertising or marketing tells us a good life should look like, but just be able to spend some time sketching out, like if I had these if I had these people in my life and these life experience of my life and even these things in my life, that would produce a lot of contentment for me and joy and peace of mind. And that can be written down and it can be quantified. So we know that number, then we can start working backwards. And then the third piece, and that's available for everyone. So my number might have been one thing. It might be something different for my kids because they started with a head start, right? But that number is unique for everyone. It's your number. It's not anybody else's. And it's not a comparison game. It's like, what's your number? And then I think the third piece is what you're doing is money's both a mindset. Like, so if we have mindset limitations or beliefs or things like I can't, or I'm not worthy, or I'm not smart enough, or I'm not good enough, or those we can work on, they're just limiting beliefs and mindsets that are there for most of us, but that can all be cleaned up. So we want to do that work. So it's both equal mindset and skill set. So with money, the only reason I have what I have, and I have financial sovereignty now, I've built financial independence. And, and I've made every mistake known to man when it comes to money. I mean, every mistake. So, I want to help others from, to avoid the mistakes I've made. But my point is, coming from where I started to what I have now, sure, there was a lot of hard work and there's a good amount of luck built in, but it's a lot of desire and drive and motivation and responsibility and a lot of failure. But at the end of the day, the other piece that was woven in there is I learned money. I made it my life's work to want to learn it, to get good at it. And that's the difference. I think if there's anything that separated me from anybody else that kind of started where I've started and maybe not wound up where I've wound up, because I've made so many mistakes. I've lost so much money. This wasn't like a linear straight up. It was like, hi, go broke, lose it all. Yeah. Hi, go broke, lose it all. Right. Too many times. Yeah. I think it's just I had a desire to get good at it. And I've spent my lifetime studying it, and that's what you're doing and now teaching it. And by virtue of wanting to teach it, we get better at it because it raises our we have to play an A game if we're going to teach it, or if we're going to talk about it, or we're going to publicize it. So anyway, here we are.
Awesome. I love that. So guys, if you didn't write it down, let me help you recap really quickly, because she clearly articulated those three things that are priorities for us. First of all, the first thing, you have to have the desire. So make sure you have the desire, and by having your desire, know why. The second thing is to know your numbers. What's that number for you? Not comparing it yourself to the Joneses or whomever else, the Demons, the Wises, right? Not comparing, but what is your number, your ideal number? And then it's not only your money mindset, but also your skill set. Are you leveling up in what you know and what you do, right, in order to move to your next? So make sure you get those three things down, and that you also act on them. Don't sit here and listen and not do, right? The majority of people won't do. Will you do something about your situation? Miss Krisstina, I know that you also host a podcast of your own. So will you share a little bit about Wellthy?
Yeah, thank you. My podcast is Wellthy, and it's money wealth, WEALTH, and it's Wellthy, WELLTHY. And that all came out of a handful of years back. I nearly lost my life, and I nearly lost my life as a physical illness combined with complete stress breakdown. Adrenal fatigue, overstress, never slept, because I was always in the pursuit of more accomplishment, more notoriety, more money, more wealth, and more marathons, faster marathons. I just pushed myself to nth degree all the time, thinking that there would be no consequence and my lifestyle was unsustainable. And it was in that pursuit of more, that constant quest and pursuit of more, that no matter what rung of the ladder I got to, it wasn't good enough. So the happiness must be at the next one. Even though I had a perfect life, I had an amazing life right in front of me, but I was so hell bent on creating the more out there, I was missing the beauty of life right in front of me. Yeah. And I just future tripped. I call it future tripping. I lived my whole life in the future, trying to chase happiness, or chase, like I said, chase more. And again, I wasn't even aware I was doing that until I was on that deathbed, and I was confronted and realized, like, oh my gosh, I'd created wealth, but now I'm spending all my wealth to get my health back. And again, the game isn't for money's sake. That's the external gratification game. That's the comparison game. That's trying to feel good enough by, we buy things to help us fit in. That's what I did as a kid. I came across money and I realized, like, oh, if I have money, I get to fit in. So what I realized is, like, it just became abundantly clear that here I was dying. I hadn't even lived yet. And that my life was so great. I had just a beautiful life that I was never content with. I was never content. And then my body was breaking down, that because I'd used and abused my body, I have an illness and nobody can figure out what it is. And every day I'm just in darkness and scared and fear. And I see my body like deteriorate in front of me. We can't even find out what's wrong. It just became this kind of this spiritual journey, but this awareness of, like, oh my gosh, I missed it. Life, our physical wellness, our spiritual wellness, our connection to God and source. I lost my connection. That's a very lonely, dark place when you're not connected to source. I realized, like, my children, I can't, what if I die? I can't even experience my children and I'm leaving them, and I can't even do my businesses because my body's breaking down. So now I'm losing my businesses and all that hard work. So it just became really clear to me that the reason to have wealth, the money wealth, is for the sake of underwriting the cost of living a wealthy life, a life that's that's focused around wellness, relational wellness, meaning our relationships are healthy and well and loving and kind and compassionate, both inside our family walls and outside, that our body is well, that it's our temple, that it's where we really get to live and express, that it needs to be taken care of and loved and nurtured as well. And that, so our spiritual, our physical, and our mental, our minds are very fragile, that to take care of our minds and our mindsets and what we allow in and don't allow in, so that, we can have, just mental health. And in a world right now where there's a lot of mental illness, but we have to take care of our mind for that to be happy. And all of that takes money. But again, when the money is just the tool that we use to pay for the cost of living a good life, we just first need to know what is a good life, so that, we know how much money is enough to take care of it. And it's like, all right, now we can just play the game of money and have fun and be present every day with who we love.
Awesome. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing your story and being vulnerable in that way to, just share the real, because everyone goes through something in life, and your story can be that empowerment for the next person. We definitely appreciate you, Krisstina, for sharing your story with us here at Financial Confidence. Where can our listeners find you?
Let's see. The best thing is I have a free download to my book and a free webinar that spells out a lot of the things we're talking about. And that's Krisstina.com, which is a K and two S's. So KRISSTINA.com. So just really easy. Just go there, get some free downloads. You can find out ways to reach me if you want to. And if not, at least you can take some reading and hopefully it'll be valuable to whoever asks for those downloads.
Awesome. Guys, yes, go check her out, Krisstina.com. That's with a K and two S's. Don't forget that. We thank you so much, Krisstina, for sharing with us here at Financial Confidence. It's been a pleasure.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
All right, guys. Well, we thank you for tuning in for this episode of Financial Confidence, where we're helping you to manifest your millions by making your money, keeping your money, and growing your money so you can do the things that you're called to do. That's to build generational wealth and leave an inheritance for your children's children. If this information has been invaluable to you, go to WYTV7.org and leave a donation so we can continue to empower, inspire, and educate throughout the community. We thank you for joining in with us wherever you're joining this broadcast, and we'll see you again next week at the same time. Until then, you stay safe.